The if you're talking about the federal restrictions, we are doing that work through our Federal Affairs Office, and we're not doing it alone. We're a member of the AAU, as you're well aware, the ALPU. These are public universities that are land grant. Those are both trade organizations for the best universities in America, best research universities, and their lobbying organizations who try to craft language and responses and meet with congressional leaders and other leaders in Washington. Lee has been to Washington maybe twice. Penny Gordon Larson was in Washington talking to the folks there. And so at the federal level, we have strong engagement, and we have strong engagement alongside other universities who are in those organizations, as well as on our own. With the state and the system office, the main point of contact is, of course, the chancellor, who reports up to Peter Hans, who has a board of governors. We also have a board of trustees, and I believe we're just starting conversations about some of the things that came in the memo you've seen in the news, and I'm happy to address. It's too early for me to say where we are on that and exactly what will happen in the conversations. But it is an open line of conversations, and we will be having meetings to discuss what the strategy would be. The deans met yesterday. Obviously, a lot to understand, apprehend, and comprehend before we develop strategies for how we respond. And I always think what we do best is, I hope, argue and persuade based on facts and evidence. That's what we say we train students to do. That's what we do as faculty. That's what staff do in this forum. And I think we can model that while we make our own ideas known to folks and be sure that we stay in conversation.
Matthew?
Thanks. Hi, Chris. Matthew from the Gilling School.
Yes.
You may have just addressed this while my hand was up, but I mean, I'm wondering specifically about the thing that was in the N&O came up, late last night about DEI, what no longer requires students to take gen ed courses that feature DEI, which, like a lot of things that sometimes come out about Carolina or about, they tend to be more undergrad focused, and that's not really where, most of Gillings is. So I just wonder, with the other professional schools, do you know if there's any, any, not statement, but any sort of reaction or anything that'll be coming out to sort of clarify both internally and externally what this means? I saw that Andrew Tripp said something, but I don't know if there's going to be anything more.
Yeah, thank you. That's the exact question I hope that we'd be able to discuss. We received the memo late Wednesday afternoon. It invokes some of the uncertainty around federal research dollars and the requirements that go with them. We, of course, want to keep our federal research dollars, so that's a good thing. My understanding of it today is that it does not change the content, style, methodology, or topics in any course. So individual instructors will be able to teach as they teach now. But I do think it seeks to make at least one of the focus capacities in the gen ed curriculum optional. And there may be conversations about what can be required in other places, but it does mention the grant of broad waivers where the content is germane to the professional degree or the major. The one waiver not available is for general education. And so I would say the one point that may be contentious or need discussion or require faculty to come together is, what is the status of our authority as a faculty to require a general education focus capacity that we are being told to make optional under this memo, and that's the point of conversation I think we'll have first. Now we have a gen ed curriculum that was debated, discussed, and approved 3 years ago. It is in revision right now. It is not that we think it's perfect. We are trying to reform it in various ways ourselves because as you live with the curriculum, you learn about it. And I think, I personally am open to all kinds of conversation about the framing and structure of those focus capacities. But I think the problem will be if faculty see that they're not being invited to a conversation, but rather into compliance with something. So I think that's the tension that we're likely to be working with. And I don't think it's a bad place to be if that's the conversation we need to have in this moment, because it is our duty to teach people what we do, why we do it, and the reasons for it. And I hope to get into alignment with folks at both at the NC General Assembly and in the system office, so that we all understand best what is best for the people of North Carolina and agree on how to proceed to do that. So I'm always starting from a position of attempting to bring things into good alignment. But it's too early for me to react specifically. The chancellor will, of course, be issuing guidance based on the memo at some point. The memo makes clear that it is the chancellor's authority here, and so it is the chancellor who I will seek to advise and who I'm going to bring people like Beth Morocco and others, into conversation with as part of my role as provost. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks. I guess the anxiety is around the timing. Like when do you think you'll be able to hear something? But appreciate the answer and appreciate the effort.
Yeah, I think I feel all of your anxiety and probably more, and I do want this to move fairly quickly. So I will be trying to help move us along into a place where at least have understanding of any operational things we need to do now, and then what are the conversations that will unfold on a more thoughtful and elegant timescale.
Rebecca.
Good morning. I am actually driving, so this may have been stated in the chat, so my apologies if I'm duplicating, but I'm not reading the chat while driving. I really do appreciate the update, and as much as it annoys my family when I say words matter, and that word that you just used is not the word that I think you want to use. I do appreciate the idea of coming into alignment. I am the product of a liberal arts education from UNC Asheville. So broadening one's mind is a very important concept to me for undergraduates. And I do feel, having worked in higher ed since '98, continually constrained by the Board of Governors and the General Assembly in terms of what we teach, how we teach, and that it's becoming much less about faculty-driven education than it is about politically driven education. And so while I truly appreciate that the idea of coming into alignment, I just wanted to state that I truly view it as coming into compliance. I struggle with the idea of ever being able to see myself in alignment with the direction that we are headed. I will certainly, support what the university chooses to do and how they choose to respond. But I'm really at a point where I feel that this is forced compliance and not alignment.
Thank you, Rebecca. I don't disagree with anything. Well, I disagree with one point you made, but it's a minor point. I don't disagree with anything you said in its substance. Of course, a lot of university life is about compliance around travel, around financial obligations. When it starts to touch the core business of the faculty, that is when the word compliance starts to be a word we're not used to hearing, because faculty have the responsibility to craft their courses in the way their scholarship dictates, and also to craft a curriculum in their own collective wisdom, and then to stipulate that and to say that all students have to participate in the elements of that curriculum. And so I think I've clearly stated what is at stake there. And when I say alignment, I didn't mean that we would shift into alignment with every proposition of those who want us to comply, but rather we would persuade them to shift in our direction so that our expertise, which they obviously trust when they send us funding, becomes their expertise, that they understand what we're trying to do, and approve of it in as much as
Thank you.
they can. Yeah. The one thing I disagree
No,
with,
thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, I will say the one thing I disagree with, it's an important point. is that I do not believe that faculty teaching and scholarship is completely separate from political teaching now. In other words, you drew this division between politically based teaching and scholarly based teaching. And I think that line itself is not one the university has maintained within the classroom for very good reasons. But there are, in the end, tough conversations that result from teaching the whole person and the whole set of subjects. And I'm ready for us to have them.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you for your perspective. All of our perspectives are going to be necessary, and I do want to hear them because they help refine what I say. Because I'm often in the room without any of you there, and I need your help.
I'm glad you're in the room. I do
Yeah, well,
appreciate that you are there.
Yeah, most of the time, not always, but thank you.
We know staff are always around to help, so.
The staff are often in the room and have to be reached out to and consulted because their perspectives may be invisible at times when we should be making them visible. So I'm really happy to hear that point of view as well, Katie, and I'll try to remember that that we're not in a caste system in which only faculty have strong feelings about this.
All right, next up, Megan.
Hi, speaking of a staff perspective, here I am. I just want to say that from what I've gathered recently, executive orders, all the ones that have been passed down, excluding the ones with federal funding for research, but all of the other ones that have been passed down, and you did kind of touch on, we don't have to comply with all of them, but it seems like we are kind of complying. UNC is complying with all of these, and from like a higher education perspective, wouldn't it be like better for us to push back against those? Like, if we're not going to, then who else will? You know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying. I think it's not so bright a line, and so what I understand is not even every federal agency is hearing the executive orders in the same way, and so in our funding mix we have numerous different agencies. Some agencies have paused some grant giving or grant disbursement based on executive memos. Other agencies reading that same memo have not paused anything. So I don't think it's uncommon to have this period of uncertainty when things change rapidly. And I can give you an analogy, which I think is useful. When we lost the SFFA, the Students for Fair Admission case, we had to go through enormous parts of our operation and ask questions about what was legal, what was not. The discipline for not complying would have been in more lawsuits, and they were very expensive. And we had to make judgments around risk, and eventually each one of those judgments, and I will say this, both proudly and as a compliment to how this university operates, I was allowed in each case to make the final judgment, and I did increase our appetite for risk in ways that I was warned about and decided that were worthwhile for our operation. For instance, disbursing scholarships that are still given out based on protected categories when we are not the selector of the scholarship. Those were things I felt we simply must do, even though they had some small risk. So we're in the same situation. Each agency is trying to decide how much risk they want to take on in the disbursement of federal funds. And we have to decide collectively how much risk the institution wants to take as a recipient of funds that might be threatened. And that will settle out. I think that will become clear as we have time. This most recent memo, however, came from the system office. So it's not a campus level decision. It's a statement about what we should be doing. And we have to decide how we're going to respond and how we're going to pass that onto the campus. And the memo was very explicit that the chancellor, in consultation with the faculty, will be the person who has to make the final judgment. So it won't be, as it was in SFFA, my decision, it will be his. Of course, I will advise with our team of fine people.
Thank you. I was about to say, since you're in the room with him, can you ask him, to stop?
I will make the point you just made. He's very smart. I think he appreciates it already, but nothing like making it explicit. So thank you.